Good evening and welcome. My name is Renix Franklin, and I'm honored to serve as co-chair of the Professional Development Committee for the Florida School Counselor Association, also known shorthand as FSCA. And I will be your moderator this evening. On behalf of the Florida School Counselor Association, I, as well as my co-chair, Mr. Evan Willis, who is present this evening,
Hey, good evening,
our
guys.
our board liaison, Ms. Jeannie Maddox, who will be recording the session. And there we are, Ms. Jeannie. And the dynamic team of professional school counselors across the state of Florida, we are honored to present this webinar on Sanford Harmony and Sanford Inspired. Our presenter is looking forward to speak with you this evening. But before I introduce him, let's address some housekeeping items. Primarily, this session is being recorded, and it will be on the Florida School Counselor Association YouTube channel, available through the Florida School Counselor Association website in the next 2 to 3 days. Please leave your microphone on mute so as to not create feedback, distract our presenter, or disturb other participants. For those unfamiliar with Zoom, you can do this by clicking on the microphone icon on the bottom left of your screen. You will see a red diagonal line going through the microphone icon when it is on mute. Please turn off the video feed on your camera. As we all become more comfortable with virtual meetings, participants sometimes forget they're on camera, and the multitasking during the webinar can cause distraction to others. Again, if you're unfamiliar to Zoom, please do this by clicking the camera icon on the bottom left of your screen. You should see a red diagonal line going through the camera icon when it is off. For optimum webinar viewing, it is recommended to close out the windows of all the webinar participants except the speaker. You can do this now by going to the top of your gallery of participants, and there you will see 4 icons. Starting from the left, click the second icon in. It is a small gray square. That gray square will allow you to close all images but that of the speaker. The content portion of this presentation will last 60 minutes, and our presenter will take questions at predetermined locations throughout the presentation and at the conclusion. You are invited to post your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation, where Mr. Willis will be monitoring your additions to that chat. And now, to introduce this evening's guest. Presenting tonight for the Florida School Counselor Association webinar is Sanford Harmony Coordinator, Mr. Rick Roach. Mr. Roach holds a Master of Arts degree in Educational Psychology and has served as a classroom teacher, school counselor, and coach in Orange County, Florida. Furthermore, his professional work includes school board member of Orange County, as well as adjunct professor in 7 universities across our nation. Thank you for joining us this evening, Mr. Roach. We are eager to hear how we can impact our students in a positive way through social emotional learning as we dive into Sanford Harmony and Sanford Inspire. Before we turn the floor over to you, we do have a poll just so that we are knowledgeable of who is in our audience this evening. So at this time, we're going to launch a poll in Zoom. Please take a moment to answer the question so that we're more aware of who is present in our webinar tonight.
Who's in the room? Okay. 100%. Teacher, okay. Grad student.
And with about 75% voting, we have elementary school counselors present, high school counselor, a school counseling grad student, and classroom teacher. So we do have a variety in the room. And hopefully you can see the polling results just a minute so we're all clear on where we are. And with that information, Mr. Roach, we pass the mic over to you.
All right. Well, listen, I am delighted to be here tonight. This is my fourth year in a row of being with the Florida School Counselors Association. I'm sorry it's not live. It was fun when we were in the 2-hour workshops before, but we'll get through this tonight. I'm really happy to be with you, especially as a former counselor, school counselor. I feel right at home. And, you know, counselors are just nice people. I've seen these two guys here smile all night long. I can't believe it. Here it is, the late nightcap session, and they're still smiling. But yeah, let's talk about these programs that we've got here. And educators, I'm telling you right now, the two websites that you're going to learn to access here are absolutely full of material. So I'll be going over that a couple of times tonight, but I want you to know that they just the universities put a lot of money into the digital platform now on the Harmony and the Inspire. So you just got it at your fingertips. So if we can, let's see, I get this thing screen off of here. It's brought to you by Nova Southeastern University. That who sponsors the program. I am employed by them. I will tell you that this program has grown from the last 4 years that I've been involved. And I want you to know how much it's grown. We are now, we have this program installed in over 1,000 elementary schools and middle schools in the state. We have about 50,000 teachers now are Harmony teachers, impacting 1 million Florida children. And that's good news. If you're a counselor out there and teachers, you know how important these skills are. And we've got kids who are benefiting from this right now. And that wasn't always the case. So I'm just real proud to have this program with us. The Inspire program, which is the professional development piece, is 55,000 teachers have access to this across the state. And it's a national program, an international program, but I just work in the Florida area. But we lead the nation with Harmony teachers. So you're about to join a pretty fabulous group. Okay, let's get started. Next slide over there, Renix, and we'll get moving. You know, I don't have to tell, I'm preaching to the choir when I talk about social emotional learning. All of us know how important this is. And the bottom line is, you know, this program is kind of fits the school teacher very, very well, but it's perfect for school counselors as we go through this. So you're going to see me go back and forth with classrooms and counseling and how you can use it. But I know my favorite time of being a counselor was really working in classroom guidance. I loved going into the classrooms and working with teachers on SEL skills and communication skills and what have you. So you're going to find a whole bunch of uses for this, whether you're in an individual counseling session or a small group, or if you're with a bunch of, if you're with teachers in a classroom, you'll find the use for that. But you know, these are all the skills that you and I learned through the School of Hard Knocks. Nobody ever taught me how to problem solve and how to communicate and how to make friends. And when I was growing up, that was just all, it was a tough road to hoe. So now we're doing this with pre-K kids right on up the line and teaching them these valuable skills. Okay, next slide, Renix, and I'll tell you what the teachers in the country are saying about this. And before I had the experience of getting the feedback from Florida teachers and counselors, I leaned on this. But if you look at this, and I'm sorry that this slide has got the letters out of place, but school achievement goes up when kids have these competencies or when they walk into a classroom that has this kind of community feel to it. It doesn't make kids any smarter, but it makes kids do their very best. And all of us can talk about that. We've all been in work settings where there was, you know, might have been not as good as we wanted to. We just didn't perform as well. But when you're in a work setting where you really are valued and respected and you're cared about, you do your best. So the achievements going up, the Johns Hopkins studies and the Arizona State studies are showing an 11 to 13% rise in academic scores. And of course, this is all CASEL approved, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. They bid the stamp of approval on this. School enjoyment goes up. Good old Polk County did some research on it. They found out that attendance went through the roof. Kids were coming to school more often. They were not being late. They didn't want to miss these morning sessions that they had with Harmony. Empathy goes up. You can hear principal. One principal in Volusia County, I never forget when I went out to train him, he told his teachers, he says, I want these kids to have empathy, and they don't. He says they'll have empathy for a kid in a wheelchair, but after that, they just don't. And that's the most important thing we can give kids is this whole feeling understanding. So empathy goes up, stereotyping, bullying, and aggression goes down. And nobody can teach or really do their best if you feel like you're being bullied or stereotyped. You know how that is, counselors. So all these things go down. And then when I got my, I did a survey in Florida last year, and I didn't know if I'd get anybody sending me a survey back, but I got 400 back from counselors and teachers across the state. And I'll tell you, I sat down and I hate to say it, but I had tears in my eyes when I read those surveys. These teachers and counselors were getting tremendous results from kids who were quiet, who didn't have anything to share, who showed little self-confidence. Even the leaders in the classroom were going and reaching out to the other kids. Cliques were disappearing. It was almost like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works. Next slide, Renix. These are the two, I call these the bread and butter of Harmony, the meetup and buddy up strategies. And when I go into teachers' classrooms or in schools and teach teachers this, they see right off the bat that they can get results in less than 10 minutes a day. I always tell teachers, if you put 10 minutes in, you're going to get 20 minutes back. Now, counselor is a good thing for you to do too. You can demonstrate these skills in classrooms. You can go in and ask the teacher if you can do a meetup for her and kind of him and get them kind of get them going on these particular skills. And you'll find out that this is something they can do on their own when you leave there. So the buddy up skills are the same thing. These are, we're going to go through each one of them and tell you exactly what they do. Okay, the next slide will show you pre-pandemic. This is what kids did in the meetup. They sat in a circle and they had shoulder buddies here. And they had a 4-step program that they went through for about 5 minutes, but it kicked off the program and the day very well for kids. We never know what they've come into school experiencing. It may have been something really terrible. They may have a tough day. And this is the highlight of the day. And it's why Polk County had so much success with their attendance and tardiness situation. So now we got to put them 6 feet apart, but we still encourage a meetup to be in a circle where everybody can see each other and they get that family feel. You'll notice in the background there's a flip chart, and that's where the teacher has the Harmony goals on there. Goals are important. Hey, welcome, Becky. Good to see you coming on in. And yes, and I will tell you that I could probably tell you the districts that aren't doing it, Becky, rather than the ones that are doing it. Out of the 67 school districts, we're in 58 of them, all the way from Escambia County down to Dade. We've got them over to Hillsborough County, to Volusia, everywhere. Some of the smaller counties aren't involved right now. Some of those counties have 1 or 2 schools in there. So it really grew. So there's the Harmony goals. Now we all know that classrooms need rules. Rules are the boundaries of the classroom, but the goals are the character piece, and counselors are really good with this stuff. The only thing about Harmony though is this whole character, character that you're trying to highlight here goes throughout the year. You want to put kindness up, for example, you break it down into pieces. Now the next slide will show you what it looks like when this is why we do it. Forgive me on that. Why meetup? And I remember the surveys I said I got back. This is exactly what the teachers and counselors said was happening in their school. Now you look at that and you tell me what teacher wouldn't want this to happen in their classrooms. The classroom community. I went into Lake Panasoffkee Elementary over in Sumter County. The principal was so excited. She called me and said, Rick, you need to come up here and see what these teachers are doing. And so I went in and I saw a 5th grade class doing their meetup. They were standing up in a circle. And this class had been doing it for a while. I noticed that the teacher wasn't in the circle. And then I thought, you know what she does? She delegates this each day to another child to take them through the motions on this. But one of the kids at the end of the meetup, I said, what do you like about the Harmony program? And she said to me, she said, you know what, in this class, this is like a family in this class. And the next little girl, she stood up and she said, She says, everybody in here likes everybody. And I thought, if you have a classroom like that, you get to teach. And so it's worth the time to put in. Next slide. This is where the harmony goals. Now the kids sign up for this. Once they establish what they want to have as goals, they sign their names to it, almost like a Bill of Rights. We're all going to sign up here in the Constitution, etc. Encourage one another, take time to understand each other, listen, include everyone, be helpful, are the kindness character that this teacher wants to bring into the play. And now keep in mind that everything I'm telling you is done even better on the portal. I mean, you got the training videos, you've got the Meetup and Buddy Up guys, everything you want. So I'm just kind of, gently taking you through the program, but the goals are tremendous. My wife is a teacher. She was a third grade teacher last year. And she told me that the kids are always saying, Mrs. Roach, Bobby showed harmony today. They mean kindness, but they said harmony is what they said. So they really are aware of that. And that's what you want. You want to have a cool classroom, and a cool classroom is kind. Okay, there's your goals. That's part of the program. But the next slide, Renix, is the 4 steps. These are magic. I can't tell you. They're so simple, and yet they're just magic. Let me go through them. When the kids get in that circle and they've established their harmony goals, that's the 3rd step, they're going to greet each other. Now that sounds kind of simple, but they're going to greet each other by name, and research will tell you when kids hear their name, good morning, Renix, good morning, Evan, good morning, Becky, it just feels good to them. But the greetings change all the time. Now, we always have a different greeting each day. So today we're going to say good morning. Tomorrow we're going to say konnichiwa, like the Chinese do. The Japanese. And then we're going to do like the Hawaiians do. We're going to do a little aloha over here. We'll do a bonjour. We'll do what the Fiji people do. They just do a bula. So we'll teach them all these different greetings each day, and the kids are learning new ways to greet. My cousin is a 2nd grade teacher in Brevard County, and the district went in to observe her. She probably hates me for bringing them in, but they came in and she had the kids research greetings from around the world. And so she had it in a stack. And each morning when she said, okay, boys and girls, let's meet up, they got in their circle. And she says, Bobby, it's your turn today. Pull a greeting off the stack and show the kids what you would like them to greet with. So the 2nd step is sharing and responding. That means one child gets to share something kind of cool going on in their life. Maybe Jimmy says, hey, you know what? I got a new puppy. And then 2 kids get to ask a question. Now, the reason we don't let every kid do this is because it takes time, and a lot of teachers are really cognizant of that. They don't want to take up a whole lot of time because they got to get to reading and math. But one kid shares something kind of cool. 2 kids get to ask a question. And you'd be surprised what kids say about this. They'll say in their reports to me, they'll say, we don't get to talk about personal things in school. This is the time when somebody can highlight something going on really nice. The 3rd step's really important because you've made your harmony goals, and now you're going to say, boys and girls, can anybody give me an example of being kind to someone or someone being kind to you? And you get specific examples here so kids know what kindness is. I'm telling you, I was a teacher and counselor for years. You could tell kids they need to be kinder all day long, and they'll nod their head and say yes, and then they'll slap somebody in the lunch line. So you gotta really bring this out. What is kindness and what does it feel like? And it's cool to be kind in this class. So counselors, you can take them through these harmony goals and help teachers with this too, or in your small group settings. Finally, step 4 is just a way to end a meetup. The quick connection simply says, we're going to do something really quick that connects the class. And in your harmony portals and in the physical kits, if anybody has them, you've got 50 different ways to end a meetup. All right, it could be as simple as hands in the middle. I just did a school the other day and trained a school that were the Cardinals, the Ocoee Cardinals. You put your hands in the middle and say, go Cardinals. And the kids yell and they scream and they laugh and then they go back to work. And that's kind of what you do. You end it with a nice deal. Let's do one just for the heck of it. Let's do a greeting right now, everybody. You probably can't see everybody, but I can see Renix and Evan. So let's do what the Hawaiians do. Let's do the little aloha this morning. Aloha, Evan. Aloha, Renix.
Aloha, Rick.
Hey, they say that when they're coming and going, those Hawaiians do. You never know what's going on. But now I always tell people that in 2 weeks, the parents will think these kids are multilingual. So the second thing is sharing. Now I'm going to ask Evan. Evans smiles all the doggone time, so something good has got to happen to him. Evan, share with your colleagues something good that's happened to you in the last week or so that you'd like to share.
I have two students who have just undertaken their first entrepreneurial venture. They will be selling bookmarks in our school store, and they guided the process, and I just kind of facilitated a little bit, but it was all theirs. And just to see their excitement, I loved that. So that's something that went well in the last week or so.
You know what? That's pretty cool. And that's exactly what a counselor would say, seeing some kid grow in a particular area. So now two people gets to ask Evan a question about that. Does anybody have a question that, let's take one over here. Somebody ask Evan a question about that thing he's excited about.
I'll ask you a question, Evan.
Sure.
For the two students, are they going to continue this activity so they can grow as young entrepreneurs?
We currently have a stack of those that are just waiting to be sold after this first batch. So they're very excited, they're thrilled, and they've planned to charge ahead with it, and so will I.
That's great.
Super. That's super. Well, listen, we'll move on now because I want everybody to know that that was important to Evan. It's pretty cool, and probably nobody knows that. So let's go to the let's go back one slide there, Renix, and let's talk about the third step really quickly. The third step is back to our kindness harmony goals. And what I'd like to do is just tell you real quick. I'm going to step in here and tell you that Renix and Evan have been wonderful to me. They reached out to me 2 or 3 months ago to put this on the calendar, and they worked with me on getting this PowerPoint ready to go. We had a little trouble, technical trouble earlier this week, and they relieved all my worries and made this really easy for me. I'm going to look at my wife over here. She's been very kind to me. She's over here. She put that FSCA logo on there for me tonight, and those are kindness. That makes a big difference in your life. Otherwise, I'd have been worrying. Finally, let's do a quick connection, everybody. Let's do this. Let's everybody put your hands in the middle, and we all know that our Tampa Bay Bucks have gotten to the Super Bowl, and that's over there where you guys live, I think, Renix and Evan. And on 3, I want to hear a big go Bucks. 1, 2, 3, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
And just getting there is amazing. So let's go to the next one. That's the Meetup over there. And are there any questions about Meetup? I think that you can see that it's a easy 4-step process. Here's what it does. It builds the classroom culture. Or if you have a small group, it makes everybody comfortable. And when kids are comfortable and feel like they're in a family setting, they do better across the board. So Meetup is your culture builder. Your principal could say all day long, you need to build your culture in your classroom. And many of us wouldn't know how to do that exactly. That's the 4-step process that works. Now let's switch to the other everyday practice. And this happens to be my favorite. Some of you know me, but I will tell you that I had a pretty rough going in elementary school. And when I look at this, I think of myself. I'm the little kid on the left right there. I had a really good first, second grade year. My parents were just these model parents up in Michigan, and then they got divorced, and a lot of domestic violence, a lot of alcohol came into play. And we picked up shop and moved down to Kentucky, which is my birthplace. And I told everybody, I heard the definition of a homeless kid recently. I never thought of myself as being homeless, but I was for about 5 years. I was passed around to different people in my family for the longest time, and never really had a school I went to for a whole year. And I became a mess. I did not have any friends. The only friend I had was a little kid next door that's 2 years younger than me. We used to shoot some basketball together on the side of my house. That was it. I'm telling you, I was really a mess. The Buddy Up program would have saved me. And I will tell you, counselors and teachers on here, there are kids like me in these schools. There are kids who don't have friends. They don't know how to make friends. And their confidence level is 0. And so my academic performance was horrible. My attendance was horrible in schools. It was really kind of a tough deal for me. I really didn't shake out of that until I got into high school and college. And finally, joining a fraternity in college was a turning point for me. And here's why: because I had 19 instant buddies. That's exactly what happened. And all of a sudden, people liked me, and I was a cool guy, and I just blossomed. You know, I went to college, and in the last 2 years, I played 3 varsity sports. I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Army. I was the president of my fraternity. I was brother of the year, big brother of the year. I'm not trying to brag on myself, but I'm telling you how fast a kid can grow if they have these relationship skills. So Buddy Up, turn the page over there. Buddy Up is a relationship building program that's intentional. This is a key word here, educators. It's intentional. They're paired with a different peer each week and engage with one another on a daily basis with activities and routines. Well, what activities and routines? Well, you have 150 quick connection conversations and collaborations in your packets, in your portal, that gets kids into a conversation with each other or an activity together. This really beats the pants off of pair share. A lot of teachers will use pair share. I used to use it. Okay, get with a buddy and let's go through this science lesson together. Well, who do they always go to? They go to the person that they like, and they disregard the other ones. This is where cliques pop up in the classroom, and teachers who use Buddy Up tell me the cliques disappear because every kid gets to know every kid in the classroom, and that's why that little kid at Lake Panasoffkee said, everybody in here likes everybody, because Buddy Up really worked for them. Okay, so that's really how it works. You pair them up. So let's go further and show you some more. Here's what the teachers reported when I was bawling that morning. I got those surveys. It brings together diverse peers who may not typically work with one another. Now, counselors and teachers, look at our world today. We are right in this whole systemic racism stuff. We're into this we versus they. We've got people that won't even talk to you if you're not in the same political party. This has really got to go. And what we're doing here is we're teaching these kids to come out of school much better citizens. They're going to appreciate everybody and respect differences and look for commonalities. So that's what Buddy Up does. Now I'm going to stop right there and tell you this, because teachers are always wondering when I'm working with them. They're always saying, well, how much time is this going to take? And here's what I'm going to tell you. Eventually, when kids get this, they do the work for you. They run the meetups and they build their culture. They run the Buddy Ups, they get together and they build their relationships. All you need to do is facilitate it. And then now you've got kids who like each other, a climate that's positive, and you can teach. And counselors, you can do wonders going in and helping teachers do this. You counselors are the reason why this program busted out, by the way. You're the reason. I think half of the elementary counselors in Florida, I'll bet you a dime to a dollar, are Harmony certified, because of Becky Schumacher inviting me down there every year and me going in and hitting the counselor directors of counseling who got their counselors trained right off the bat. They're the carriers to the principal. They bring this stuff to the principal who say, hey, you know, we could use some of this stuff. I'm tired of kids coming up here getting in trouble all the time. So let's do the next slide and we'll show you more about Buddy Up. Here's how you pull it off. And the first 2 steps really are, you talk about yourself. How many friends do you have? Why do you have so many friends? And what do you do with those friends? And what does it take to make a good buddy? And so what you talk about here is there's no limit on the number of friends you can have. It's really, what's really important here is that if you have 16 kids in your class, you can be friends with all of them. Now, they don't have to be their best buds, but you can appreciate and be friendly with them. So that's why, boys and girls, we're going to do this. Now, counselors, if I were you and I went in, you could run a Buddy Up right off the bat. It might look like a pair share at first, but you could kind of do some of the activities and show teachers how it works. Or if you have a small group, you want to buddy them up. So you assign the weekly buddies. In your portal, digital portals, you can actually put the names of all the kids in your class, punch a button, and it'll tell you how you won't have to overlap them. It'll match them up for you. So you create a buddy board and a tracking system. Every week, the kids have got a new kid to look at. And then you have your activities, 150 activities or conversations for kids. And you know as well as I do, when you could meet somebody in the elevator on the way home tomorrow, not know them, and we get out of the elevator, you still won't know them. But if you had a conversation with them a few times that week as you were going around that elevator, you would get to know them. You would get to know them. And that's really what Buddy Up does. It kind of cracks the ice and lets kids talk about things that they normally wouldn't do. Okay, next slide will show you the This is a real fancy one. You can do this also like my Kentucky educators. We just have index cards and masking tape, stick it up on the board. But this is a pocket chart, I want you to know. And of course, in Kentucky, we use this as shoe racks. I always tell people, but this is a pocket chart. And this teacher was really fancy. She had a red carpet and she let the kids dress up like their favorite celebrity. And then when Owen comes in on Monday morning, he looks at Carrie and says, Carrie's my buddy for the week. And maybe he doesn't even like girls, but after he has some conversations with her over the next week, all of a sudden Carrie's going to be a buddy because they'll find commonalities, because you can pick the conversations that you want them to have. So you get that going on. The next week you come in and Owen's looking up there and Molly's moved over. So Molly's his buddy the next time, and so on and so forth. This is the intentional relationship building that teachers are using and counselors are using that creates those friendships for kids like me who didn't know how to have any friends. And it would have changed my life if I'd have walked into a school and they said, buddy up. They would have said, Ricky, you're buddied up with Frankie over here today. I would have actually talked. I would have listened. I would have had a relationship, and me and Frankie might have played baseball at the end of the day. Okay, next slide. I'm going to stop there and ask if there's any questions. The buddy up and the meetup, again, are the bread and butter. It's the 10 minutes a day. Some teachers and principals like to use it 3 times a week. But, you know, if you have buddy up a couple of times a day and meetups in the mornings, it doesn't take that much time. And a lot of teachers are getting so many results from it. So I'm going to stop. Anything popping up? Everybody with me on the meetup and buddy up?
Mr. Roach, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
In presenting the program before, I heard you indicate that the teachers during the meetup are supposed to be in the middle of the circle, or no, when the students do the meetup in the morning?
It doesn't matter where you are. You can be there with them right in the circle. I'm in the middle with you because I get out there and try to teach everybody is what I'm doing. That's why you be in the middle. You certainly could be in the middle. But I think the key is eventually is you want the kids to have ownership that that's their meeting, their family. And that's why I was so impressed with that 5th grade teacher at Lake Panasofsky. She just told the kids, she would say like, Evan, little Evan, 5th grade Evan, you're going to do the meetup today. You pick the greeting, you pick the quick connection at the end, and you run the 2nd and 3rd step. So no, you don't have to be there. It's wherever you feel comfortable. And I appreciate, nobody's ever asked me that question. I appreciate that.
Another question I have, Mr. Roach, is also while presenting the program as part of the, I guess, meetup as well. The way I had the kids do it is I would have volunteers to stand at the front of the class or wherever that we were located, and have the students share 2 things about themselves, and then choose 3 students to ask that one student, you know, a question about what they shared about themselves.
Well,
Was that the appropriate way to do it, or?
absolutely. It's teachers get real creative with this. You know, I'm showing you the core program, but you know, you can get creative, and you did that. You wanted to share a couple of things, and you know, teachers do that. But you're still having a kid share. You're having kids ask questions. Sometimes when kids share something exciting, no one in that class knew that happened. No one. And so you did fine. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. But the bottom line is you're connecting kids. You're building that safe culture.
Thank you.
These are the lessons. Now, fellow counselors, let me tell you, I told Evan and Renix, when I was a counselor many moons ago, I went in and did classroom guidance, but I'm going to be honest with you, there wasn't any material. I made this stuff up. You know, I just tried to go with I had teacher effectiveness training one time. And so I used a lot of the active listening and confrontation, iMessages with kids. But, you know, here you've got something. I would have thought I'd died and gone to heaven if I had this. You've got 23 lessons at every grade level that teaches the CASEL approved 5 areas that makes a kid shine in social emotional learning. If kids have skills and competencies in these 5 areas, they do so well in school. They get good jobs. They go to college or they get a good job. They stay out of trouble. I mean, the research is just unbelievable. If we really, really took that research and looked at it, every principal would put this in their core curriculum. And the good news is all these lessons tie to the social studies standards in Florida. Marion County figured that out. And it was so impressive to see other counties copy that. So you can look at the social studies standards, incorporate these in there instead. The kids have fun. They learn SEL competencies, and you don't take up instructional time. So keep that in mind. Diversity and inclusion. Wow, just in Orlando the other day, we've got this whole Chamber of Commerce group, 70 CEOs have gotten together to sign a pledge that they're going to attack systemic racism and they're going to embrace diversity and inclusion in this community. Now, I'm not sure if they know how to do it, but what I'd like to tell them is we're teaching kids like this now in pre-K right on up the line so that they come out. We don't have to have these seminars. We already have this. Peer relationships, problem solving, communication, empathy, and critical thinking. I use something a Sarasota principal called me one time, and I have to tell you what he said because I've used this every time I talk to people. He said, Rick, he said, we were looking at SEL last year, but we didn't have any curriculum. He says, we're so excited. He said, but this year at the pre-planning, I asked my teachers, I said, what were your obstacles last year? Where did you have the most challenges and how can I help you? And the teachers, without question, most of them said that their obstacles were the behavior, the inappropriate behavior of the children, the conflict in the classroom, kids being rude to one another. They had to stop their instructional time, break up the conflict, and try to get things rolling in their classroom. They said it was really aggravating. So he said to them, he said, Rick, I asked him 3 questions. I said, when a kid can't read in our school, what do we do? And they said, well, we teach them to read. We have several different workshops, the ways to do it, extra time. He says, if they can't do math, what do? They said, we teach them. We teach them how to do all these things. And then he said, if they can't behave, they don't know how to behave, what do we do? And he said the teachers were real quiet. And one brave teacher raised her hand. She said, we send them to you, Mr. Weingard. And so he said, well, he says, here's the deal. If we could teach them to read and do math, we can teach them to behave. A lot of kids, you tell them to be good listeners. Educators, they don't know how to be a good listener. You can tell them to sit up straight and have eye contact and open their ears all day long. But that's not how you really communicate, confront, and apologize and all those good things. So I love the people that say, is it hurtful or helpful? I know that's a good strategy, but if you ask a kid, is that hurtful or helpful? They'll probably admit it was hurtful. The problem is, do they know how to be helpful the next time? How do you problem solve when you have an issue that you can't deal with? How do you make friends? You can't just tell kids to go make friends. So let's look through these beautiful units. I'll tell you how they're each constructed, Renix. This is diversity inclusion, has 4 units. They're about 35 minutes long. So you counselors, when I was over at Hungerford Elementary the other day, and it happens to be my niece, by the way, she's the counselor there. She told her principal, you need to get this program in here. Immediately, that principal said, we need to have Gina go into these classrooms and teach these lessons. Well, now Gina has the script to do it. These things are all beautifully designed with materials that you can download. It's fun to do. And those 4 issues right there help a lot of kids. Chapter 2 has to do with empathy and critical thinking. Hit that one, Imranix, the next one. Empathy and critical thinking. All of us know how important empathy is. What is empathy? You ask a kid that, they don't even know they can't spell it. So what is empathy? How do we teach kids about feelings? They have all these emotions, especially during the pandemic, for God's sakes. They don't know how to express them or what to do with them. So this chapter has 7 different lessons that teach kids how to do this, how to recognize your feelings and manage those emotions so you're not, slapping your friends all the time or just zoning out and withdrawing. Chapter 3, I love it because it's a communication one. It's listening to people. They have these role plays in here. The kids learn how to identify bloopers and boosters. It's really a lot of fun. How to respond to other people. I used to teach kids iMessages. Their teachers would send them down to me and say, this kid is so rude and disrespectful. Before I send him down to get his bottom whipped down here, could you work with him, Rick? And so I did. I taught them iMessages. I taught them how to confront, how to say things that wouldn't make their teacher mad, but it would still meet their needs. Chapter 4 is problem solving. One teacher in Orange County said, Rick, I'm going straight to problem solving. My kids are killing each other. But this teaches kids how to go through a step-by-step program and solve problems that they have so that they can be cooperative and work with people collaboratively. And finally, 5 has to do with peer relations. I felt sorry for kids as a counselor. I hated to see kids eating alone or sitting by themselves alone. But, I couldn't make anybody be their buddies. I couldn't say, Sean, would you be buddies with Mark? He didn't have any friends. Never would work. So this is a way that kids can do this on their own. They learn how to apologize and forgive and how to be a very good friend and how to make friends. So those are the 5 units that all match up with the CASEL program that got approved. And of course, the results are just amazing. Now, this is a little tricky because it takes time to do those lessons, but I'll tell you that many principals now are incorporating that into their school environment. Usually the 2nd or 3rd year, you start to see them do that. So you're going to have this this program. There's the 2 websites I told you about, the online .harmony SEL. And I'm going to get into a little bit. I went up to San Jose Elementary in Jacksonville. The district did a big scoop on that school. She sent me 35 surveys, so I knew the whole school was doing the program. And when I went up there, I want you to meet in the next slide, Miss Paula Smith, Principal Smith. And if you want to try to get your principals onto this, show them that. She brought me into her room and she said, I want to show you around my school. And first thing she said to me, I quoted her. Look at the next slide and read that real quickly. I'll be quiet while you read that. Now, I'm telling you, what she said that stood out to me was, she said, Rick, kids are using kinder words in my school. I see less kids in my office now. The AP was there with her and she nodded her head like, yeah, we don't see them up here anymore. Those kids are getting along with one another. Man, if principal could have that kind of environment, think of the things they could actually do in their school besides busting up fights and that kind of stuff and calling parents in. Okay, the next one, she took me down to see Mrs. Cox. This is Mrs. Cox, a kindergarten teacher. She wanted to brag. She showed me about 5 teachers. And Mrs. Cox took me through a 4-step harmony meetup. And look at what she did. The first thing she did was she sat down with her in her big chair, and that's her family. That's her kids right there. She is she started this out, and the kids are sitting in front of her, pre-pandemic style, by the way. And the next slide is her greeting. Again, she's teaching these kids, these kindergarten kids, how to greet each other in Arabic. I told Renix and Evan, I can't even pronounce that. I have no idea how to say that, but these kindergarten kids can greet each other in Arabic. So she turned to your shoulder partner and say, and she did that. Now turn around, the next slide shows what they did. Pre-pandemic, they got up and shook hands with each other and greeted each other in Arabic. It was absolutely cool to see these kids smile. Remember, what was going on 2 hours before at their house? Who knows? Might have been good, might have been bad. But when they come to school, they have the morning meetup. This is what they look like. Okay, the next slide, she went into the share and respond. Now here, you had mentioned a while before that 2 kids got to share. She picked out 2 kids to share, and she did it a little different. Look how she was creative. Instead of share something positive, she said, if you could open a store, what kind of store would it be? And it was so cute because one of these kids said, I'd open up a candy store. And the other one said, I'm opening up a bicycle store. And when she did that, the next slide will show you how she did this. She had this little alien called Z. If you had Z in your hand, you were allowed to ask the kids a question about their candy store and their bicycle store. So 3 or 4 kids got to ask a question. And it was just so cute. They were just so attentive. Okay, next slide. This is her harmony goals. Now, she didn't take mine. She had her own. We use kind words. I'm sure she told them what those words were. We look at each other in the eyes and listen with our ears. We keep our hands and feet and bodies to ourselves. She didn't want them slapping each other, so that was a big goal for her right there. So the harmony goals she went over, and she asked for examples from the kids. This is creative. She threw in rainbow words. While she had their attention, she wanted to do a little vocabulary with them. So she threw that up and had a kid come up and write some stuff on the board. And then she closed with a quick connection. That's your step 4. And she used music to do this. One of the cards has music where you turn it up and turn it down, and then you freeze it. And the kids dance accordingly. They dance vigorously or very slow, or they freeze. And of course, in about 1 minute, these kids had an absolute blast. And when they were through, she thanked them for their meetup. She put them right into their desk, and almost like we weren't there, they got right into their reading and their math exercises, whatever it was they did. Okay. This next one, I just got a few slides on this, but I want to tell you, for goodness sakes, take time to get on this Inspire inspirational teacher website. I'm an old PD guy. I taught for 25 years at those 7 universities around the country. I taught on weekend classes, teachers. I taught 19,000 teachers, all this professional development. And I'll tell you what I know about teachers, and that is you better keep them engaged. First of all, you can't lecture to them, and you better give them some type of strategy they can use in the classroom the next day. Now, you counselors can be heroes here because you can bring this to your principal and they will absolutely love it. So they're going to have a set of about 73 modules on teacher effectiveness. 20 of them are perfect for counselors because they talk about kids and trauma. They talk about parents and all kinds of drug-related things that have to do with our profession. Next slide, it shows you a little bit more. This is how they bust it up. There's 2 inspirational pathways, and one of them are building teaching practices, which your teachers will really enjoy because they do pack a punch. And then the following is developing SEL capacity. So all of us can learn more about social emotional learning, and those slides are all beautifully. Now, how did I know this? Because these are done at Arizona State, and they make these modules over there in a very sophisticated manner. I let my dean, I had to ask her, I said, can I fly out to Arizona and talk with this group and see what they do? She said, Rick, get out there. So I flew out to Arizona State University and I sat with these people for 4 hours and listened to all the graphic artists. They run this by superintendents, classroom teachers, university professors before they put it out there. And these modules are beautiful. They have a 1-minute video at first to see if you like it. And then they're followed with coaching guides and resource packets. And if you watch the 30 or the 60-minute video, there's a little quiz at the end, and you have to get 100 on it to get a certificate. If you get 100, you'll get a certificate. It'll pop it right out. And so these are really, I just can't say enough about it. I was so excited when I saw that. I kidded with Renix and Evan. I didn't need a plane to get home. I could have run home because I was so excited to say, just get this on your desk. It's free of charge. These donors that we have are paying for this because they care so much about teachers. And these are K through 12 teachers here. Any teacher can enjoy these and have impacts. But counselors, like I say, you're going to be heroes when you take this to your principal. I think there's one more module on this, one more slide that just talks about the different uses of it. It's not a very good slide, but individual teachers, Miami-Dade uses this for teachers who have the alternate degrees. They didn't go to teachers college. They came out as an accountant and all of a sudden wanted to be a teacher. So they mainline them with this. Broward County uses it for new teachers every summer. And Broward County has about 18,000 teachers. So you can imagine the crop they get every year. And then faculty presentations you can use them for. If a principal is concerned that maybe a teacher is struggling with classroom management, he can give them that module. He can track it to see if they took it or not. And then he can bring them in for a conversation. Did you learn anything from proximity? You know, for example, that's one of the 2 or 3 strategies that they have in there. They're just fabulous. And I want you to know that this has always been one that I didn't preach about a whole lot, but I'm really excited about it now. They're also coming out with Harmony 3.0 and Inspire 3.0 at the end of this school year. So they've listened to the field and they're going to upgrade all these videos and all the Harmony stuff as well to max out on the needs that people have talked about. I think that's about it. The next slide is it just talks again about how they use it. For example, Brevard County uses this district-wide. Osceola County now, after 3 years of sitting on it, are found now they're crazy about it because they just discovered it. They kind of put it on the shelf. And then finally, when somebody looked at it, they're just going nuts with it now. Classroom teachers can use it. Universities can use it. Of course, we embed these into some of our education classes and we use them as resources as well. You could almost teach a graduate class on 2 or 3 graduate classes on these things. So that's really the end of it. Take the next one. That's just how to get a hold of me. I welcome all your emails that you have of me. I will come to your school and train you if you're not too doggone far. Last time I went up to the end of the panhandle there, I had back problems for 2 weeks. But I'm happy to help you. I go out to schools all the time and train. Some of them are getting a little more brave. They're sitting the teachers far apart with masks. but I'm still able to demonstrate the skills to them. And I will tell you, it's a very rewarding job because I see happy teachers when I leave those schools. They're really excited to have this stuff. So are there any questions? I think we're about 10 minutes from the end time. Most of you probably hadn't even eaten dinner yet, I guess, but are there any questions you have of me now, or certainly I'll take them, down the road if you want to also.
I'm going to go through and catch up on the chat. We had a few questions throughout. Becky was curious about the districts that we have on the webinar tonight with us. So if you guys could take a moment to type which district you're with for us this evening in the chat.
Orange County, oh my gosh, home sweet home. I hope you voted for me when I was a school board member. Duval.
Orange County, Duval County in the building.
Yeah, Katrina Taylor is really a big harmony champion up there in Duval, big time. And Paula Renfro is really into the Inspire up there in the county.
Becky also sent some love to Paula, the principal you were telling us about, superstar and a wonderful person. Every school needs a Paula Smith.
Yeah.
And Kimberly said she was an excellent teacher as well.
How about that? Well, there you have it. I'm glad to tell Principal Smith there that I use her everywhere I go, so the whole state knows about her. Yes.
Paula R is also an awesome educator.
Yeah, Katrina, she just absolutely bulldozed harmony into that entire district. I've been up there for several train the trainers with principals, and they thought they did their principals, then they did counselors. They did a lot of work.
Well, that looks like it's it for the question. So I'll say it again. If anyone has a question that they'd like to put in the chat, feel free to use that chat box. And Rick has also included his contact information on the slide you see on your screen if you'd like to get in touch with him with any other questions.
And just a quick check of the time, it is 8:22 p.m. So we do have until 8:30 if questions are coming in. So just give a little bit more time, Mr. Roach and Mr. Willis, to check that chat before we conclude our session this evening.
Yes, sir.
Hey, listen, I really appreciate your attention, everyone. We're making a difference with these kids, and we're turning out a bunch of really good potential citizens out there. We really can. The whole idea was to change the world one classroom at a time, and I think that we're on our way. So have at it.
And Mr. Willis, are we seeing any questions coming through in the chat?
No more questions coming through. Just some love for Mr. Roach's presentation. Thank you. This was a great presentation, and I echo that.
As well. Well, with that being said, we want to give people time to do a survey for you, Mr. Roach. So on behalf of the Florida School Counselor Association, the PD committee, and the participants here this evening, we thank you so very much for your time. We thank you for your insight, and we thank you for helping to spread the important knowledge and word about social and emotional learning. To our participants, in just a moment, we're going to post a link in the chat for you to complete a survey on the webinar this evening, and that feedback is very valuable to us. It helps us as a committee to reflect on the webinar and also help plan future webinars. And I do see that our co-chair has posted that. So you can take a moment before we close this session to access that link. And you can take this time while we're still in session to complete that survey. It'll just really give us some feedback to help us plan for future webinar sessions and to reflect on this evening with Mr. Roach.
You want to come say hi to everybody, honey? You want to see a real teacher? There she is.
I'm just having some neck pain from working on the computer for so many hours.
Oh my God. The woman works 12 hours a day, I swear to God. Unbelievable.
And with that, we just want to offer a reminder that this webinar was recorded this evening, and in about 2 to 3 days, it will be available on the Florida School Counselor Association YouTube channel, accessed by our website. So you'll be able to view it and also share it with any colleagues that might have been absent this evening to continue to spread that word about social emotional learning and the impact it can have on the students in our care. We thank you again, Mr. Roach. I heard Mr. Willis share the love coming through the chat. We definitely thank you again for everything that you've done and continue to do with Sanford Harmony, with educational stakeholders, and just spreading this message again. It's really amazing, and we thank you for choosing us to share that message with our membership with the Florida School Counselor Association.
It's my pleasure, honestly. Anytime you need me, just holler.
And Mr. Willis, any comments last minute before we end it?
No, a huge thank you to Mr. Roach, a huge thank you to all of you for joining us this evening, and a huge thank you to you, Renix, for facilitating this one this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you for monitoring the chat, and thank you for everyone coming in, to taking time out this evening to learn some more and to grow and to take this with us into our workspaces, hopefully tomorrow. With that, everyone, we wish you a wonderful evening, and we thank you again for joining us. We do have another webinar that we are planning for the month of February. So if you do want to mark your calendars, we do have 2 events coming from the PD committee. We will have our Lunch and Learn level shares coming up in next month. So be on the lookout for information about that posted to the website. Those are opportunities for counselors across the state to get together, collaborate, and to share best practices, and to just come together as a professional learning community across the state. And our next webinar is going to be very, very special because we have a very special guest that will be leading that webinar, and it is on RAMP, and it will be presented by the Florida School Counselor of the Year. So we're working to bring her to our audience to share information about RAMP, which is an amazing accreditation process provided through ASCA. And we're going to continue to do more positive, impactful things in PD. We also do not want to close with plugging. If you're happen to be a counselor on the call this evening and you are not a member of the Florida School Counselor Association, please consider joining FSCA. The benefits are great. There's an annual convention. Committees are doing wonderful things in terms of advocacy, in terms of membership drives, in terms of professional development. And we want to give you that opportunity to add your voice to our community of counselors and to our profession. Everybody, have an amazing evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.